Imagine you're flying along and you're looking out your window and you're getting ready to land, and on the runway that you're planning to land on is a 737 with about 150 people or so, but you're thinking, yep, I'm going to land anyway. And you end up flying about 100 feet above that 737. I'm confused by just about everybody involved in this story. Here's how it all starts.
Well, Tower 564, Hotel Victor on the GPS Yankee runway 27 approach.
Number 564 Hotel Victor, Lumber Tower. Traffic in position was 260 at 10, runway 27.
All right, clear to land 27, 4 Hotel Victor.
Southwest 2493 Lumber Tower. Traffic 5 mile final, winds 250 at 11, runway 27. Line up and wait.
27 left wait, that's 24.
If you aren't used to hearing air traffic control every day, this may sound like it's happening really fast, but this is all taking place here. This is Lindbergh Field in San Diego, and the speed they're talking is pretty normal in an airport of this size. Now, in case you didn't catch it, the plane that's getting ready to land is a Citation. They're on the approach for runway 27. This is the GPS Yankee runway 27 in San Diego, and we know that he's right about here, which is 5 miles out because she says it right here.
Traffic 5 mile final, winds 250 at 11, runway 27. Line up and wait.
I've never flown the Citation, but I'm going to guess its approach speed is about 120 knots, which means they're doing 2 miles a minute. So if he's 5 miles out, that means he's only got about 2.5 minutes until they're going to be on the runway. Now, that 5 miles out may have a little bit of a buffer, but roughly 5 miles is going to be about 2.5 minutes. So they have about 90 seconds roughly to get that Southwest plane moving down the runway so they can be off the runway and have it be clear. That is not a lot of time. A lot of times when I get a call that says, hey, there's traffic on final, line up and wait, I'm looking outside the window and watching a plane getting off the runway. And as soon as they get off the runway, I'm expecting to hear a call saying, get ready to go. Now, something that's important to know about this that's different from a lot of other airports is you'll notice that San Diego only has one runway on it. Now, I've never worked in air traffic control, but to me, in some aspects, it'd be easier having one runway because you're only having to deal with really the essential part, the takeoff and landing on one specific runway. The people that are taxiing can wait. The landing and that stuff has to happen. I'm going to use DFW as an example of how it typically works. You're going to have planes doing their takeoffs here on 18 left, and everybody that's coming to land is on 18 right. Now, what that means, if you're a pilot and you're in DFW, you're lined up on 18 left, they may tell you line up and wait, and you'll be sitting there for a few minutes. And that's not a big deal because you know that runway is pretty much only used for takeoff. I've told you before, I don't like to be on a runway unless I'm getting ready for takeoff or landing, and I don't like to sit there for a long time, and this story is basically one of my concerns of doing that. Before there was videos like this that I'm making, I had to hear these stories from older pilots and situations that they experienced. So this is a story of why it's important when you get onto a runway, you want to be really clear and listening to what's going on around you. In a place like DFW, if you're on 18 left, everybody's landing on 18 right, it's not a big deal. But with just one runway, it's a little bit trickier and you have to be paying a lot more attention. So if you're Southwest and you got told to get on the runway here and there's a plane on a 5 mile final, you know there's not a lot of time to get you out of the way for them to be able to land. So you're thinking you're going to be getting a clearance here very quickly, but watch what she does instead.
Alpha 2895, turn left at Bravo 8, taxi spot 1, contact ramp tower 129.77. Good day.
Hey, Bravo 8, taxi to spot 1 and over to ramp tower for Delta 2895. Afternoon, Olympic Tower, Alaska 772, 9.5 back, RMP Mike 27.
Alaska 7782, Lumber Tower, winds 250 at 10, runway 27, clear to land.
Clear to land 27, Alaska 772. That's one verified.
0 Alpha Limburg Tower, you'll be number 4 for departure. I do have an amendment to your altitude. Advise ready to copy.
Outside block.
November 2110 Alpha Limburg Tower, I have an amendment to your departure. Advise ready to copy.
Ready to copy, 10 Alpha.
Now I tightened up the audio just so we weren't waiting too long, but even with that amount of transmission there, if you're Southwest and you're sitting on the runway there, you're thinking, hey, we're here. You got a guy on a 5 mile final. You have Alaska, who's just a few miles behind them. Like, we want to get going. But instead, she starts talking to a guy who's number 4 for takeoff.
Limburg Tower, you'll be number 4 for departure. I do have an amendment to your altitude. Advise ready to copy.
One of the most important things that you can get taught as a pilot is prioritizing, finding, hey, what is the most important situation here to deal with? Because you might be dealing with a situation that really isn't life or death, and then while you're letting this engine on fire out here happening, you're dealing with something that's really not a big deal, like the air conditioning pack won't go on. So as a pilot, you get really a lot of training on focusing on, hey, this is the priority here. You need to focus on this thing. This other thing, like the air conditioning, can wait. The engine that's on fire, you need to focus on that. So it surprises me that you have this plane that's getting ready to land, you have a plane that's on the runway, and then you have her talking to this guy who's number 4 for takeoff. Now that Citation jet has a clearance to land. That doesn't mean that they have to land, it just means that they're okay to land. Every time you land on a runway at an airport, you have to get permission, a clearance to say, okay, you're good to land, but it is still your discretion as a pilot to say, hey, this approach didn't look good, or hey, there's deer that are running across the middle of the runway, so I don't want to land, so we're going to do a go around. You still have the final decision as the pilot to do the landing or not, and then if you decide not to do the landing, air traffic control has to sort out and get you back safely. That's their job. Your job is to make the safest decision you can for you and the people on your aircraft. But watch what he does here.
I'll verify 4 Hotel Victor, still clear to land.
By heading 275, or correction, display the published missed approach.
There you go.
Citation 4 Victor Hotel, go around, flight the published missed approach.
All right, going around 4 Hotel Victor. Tower Southwest 2493.
Southwest 2493, Limerick Tower, exit the runway, right turn at Charlie 2, all the way on to Charlie, please.
Roger. And reasoning?
There's traffic on a 2-mile final behind you.
So you're getting ready to land seeing that there's another plane on the runway, and your choice is, hey, should I go around? But instead you want to call air traffic control and say, just want to confirm we're cleared to land. Well, obviously you were cleared to land, but that doesn't mean that you should land. What if she said, yeah, you're cleared to land. You're just going to land with another plane sitting on the runway? No, that makes literally no sense. Now, keep in mind, this runway has a displace threshold, which means this part of the runway here cannot be landed on. And it also means that the path these pilots are going to be seeing as far as where they want to land is going to be directing them to land in this section right here. So they would be landing outside the section of where the Southwest plane is. But keep in mind, this is happening in the middle of the day, and the plane that's on the runway isn't some camouflage plane, it's Southwest. These are the paint colors for Southwest. I mean, look at these colors. It's like you took a pimp suit and wrapped an airplane in it. It's impossible not to see. Now, I don't know, but I'm guessing the pilots that are in this citation just thought, well, Southwest is deep enough here, so we're going to be able to land beyond the threshold and in the runway part that we're supposed to land in, and we got a clearance to land. So if you're the pilots that are in the citation here, you got a clearance to land from air traffic control. Let's say that she had cleared you again to go ahead and go land. Would you have been in trouble? I guess what you could have said is, hey, I was so focused in the landing area that I was going to, I didn't even notice the Southwest plane there, so we had the clearance to land, and we did. If you said that, and let's just imagine that that was true, I guess the FAA couldn't really say anything. Like, hey, I was really just focused on hitting my touchdown area, and that's what I was focused on, and I didn't see the other plane. I guess they would be totally fine. But I'm guessing that they asked for the clearance to land a second time because they're looking at that plane that's sitting on the runway. And if you're looking at a plane that's on the runway, what if they said, yeah, you're cleared to land, and then for whatever reason the controller said, okay, Southwest, you're cleared for takeoff? I mean, it just makes no sense at all. If there's a plane on the runway anywhere, like even if they're at the very, very end and you know that you're able to stop, land, and get off before they do anything, if they're on a 3-mile long runway and you see a plane at the very end, and I've seen that before where some plane rolls out a long ways and you have to do a go around because they're not off, and you know for a fact, hey, I don't need that long to land. I can land in 6,000 feet, and they're 14,000 feet down the runway. It won't be a big deal, but you have to do a go around because if they're on the runway at any portion, you just have to go. You cannot land there. Now, if you're sitting in the Southwest plane, you've been sitting there for a couple minutes, you know that there's a plane on final, you know that there's a plane right behind that, you'd probably start to be getting a little bit nervous, and that's why I'm guessing this call happened.
Tower Southwest 2493.
So it's just really confusing to me. How do you have a controller put a plane on the runway, and they're on the runway there, and then gets distracted and talking about somebody who's number 4 for departure? Not even number 2, number 4 for departure. Then how do you have a plane that's getting ready to land, looking at the plane that's sitting on the runway? And I believe there's 2 pilots on that type of plane that's required to be there. So that means you have 2 people up there. I would think one of them would see the plane and say, hey, we should probably do a go-around, but instead they asked for the clearance to land again. Makes no sense to me. And then you have Southwest, who pulled onto the runway knowing that there was a plane on a 5-mile final, and then they heard Alaska check in behind them. However, in their defense, it'd be a little bit weird if you were them sitting on that runway, because it'd be abnormal to say to the controller, like, hey, we're sitting on the runway, we're ready to go. That's a trickier one because they didn't really know what was on the 5 mile final. Could have been like a 152 that's just like barely puttering along to get ready to land. I guess they could have been thinking that it was that, and so they had more time. It's trickier for the Southwest pilots because they're thinking, hey, you've put me on this runway getting ready for takeoff. You're not going to say, hey, we want to go, because you sound kind of bossy and pushy. If you're watching all this at home and you're seeing everything that's going on, it's really clear you would think, oh, if I was the Southwest pilots, I would definitely be saying, hey, there's a guy on a short final and he's 2.5 minutes out. But in this scenario, if I'm them, I could easily see and understand how they're not saying anything. But you could hear them start to get a little bit nervous in that call when they heard the go around happen. Now they're thinking, oh man, did we mess up? Because typically when something goes wrong, pilots just feel and tend to think, uh-oh, we did something wrong. Obviously, in this case, they got told to line up and wait, so they did that. And the controller just somehow forgot that they were there, and then the plane landing just thought, oh, we'll just land past them. Blows my mind. I look forward to hearing from you. Until then, keep the blue side up.